So if you're like me, you've probably wondered, what would a high place look like that you read about in the Bible? Well, they've actually got one here in Petra. It's not as old as what we would have seen in the Bible from King Solomon's day, but it's still one of the best preserved here in the Levant. So let's go check it out.
Here I am walking up to the high place of sacrifice. Everything I read online, it said that this hike would take roughly 45 minutes. Didn't take me that long. I imagine if you stopped and took a number of breaks, it probably would. I had roughly half a day in Petra, and I was told, you should do the monastery instead of the high place of sacrifice. But just because I love Bible history and this altar is not mentioned in the Bible, but it is indicative of what ones would have looked like during the time period. I chose this over the monastery just because I thought this would be awesome, and it was awesome. So it's going to take us a little bit to get up here to the top. Here you can see the view so far going up. We've got a long way to go. The mountain we're going to be climbing is over here on the right. So this hill or this mountain that we see on the right that's fairly high is where we're going to go towards the top of. At the top of this, we're going to see several obelisks that are dedicated to the two main deities that were worshipped in this area. So we're going to take a look at several different passages in the Old Testament that refer to high places, similar to the one that we are walking up towards here in this video in Petra, Jordan. And so let's first take a look at Numbers chapter 33, verses 50 through 53. On the plains of Moab by the Jordan across from Jericho, the Lord said to Moses, "Speak to the Israelites and say to them, when you cross the Jordan into Canaan, drive out all the inhabitants of the land before you, destroy all their carved images and their cast idols, and demolish all their high places. Take possession of the land and settle in it, for I have given you the land to possess." So you may be wondering what these carved images could have looked like. And on my recent trip to the Jordan National Museum, I took these pictures of some idols that were made during biblical times, not as old as the conquest of Canaan, but they still help you get an image of what these carved faces or idols could have looked like. I also took a picture at the museum of this altar. It's believed this was an altar to Astarte, the fertility goddess in Canaan. And so not what you would have more than likely seen in Petra here, but just gives you an idea of what the Israelites would have seen as they were conquering the land of Canaan.
If you're enjoying this video, don't forget to hit the subscribe button below. It helps me continue making content just like this video. So it's definitely a haul up to the high place of sacrifice here. I can't imagine being one of these priests. They would come up here and offer the sacrifices, because this is a workout. And I don't even think that I'm a quarter of the way there yet. So let's see how much further this goes. This is going to be so much easier coming back than it is going all the way up the side of this mountain. And I believe we're going all the way up there. So definitely not even, I'd say 15% it feels like. There's a long way to still go.
And so now let's take a look at another instance where high places are mentioned in the Old Testament. And this time let's take a look at the life of King Solomon. King Solomon was the third king of Israel. So we had Saul, then David, and then Solomon, who was the son of David. And so Solomon had many wives, which in this instance, he broke God's command. And speaking of kings for Israel, Deuteronomy 17:17 says, "He must not take many wives, or his heart will be led astray. He must not accumulate large amounts of silver and gold." And so in Solomon's life, we know that he did marry many wives, and they did lead his heart astray. And so with that in mind, let's take a look at 1 Kings chapter 11. King Solomon, however, loved many foreign women besides Pharaoh's daughter: Moabites, Ammonites, Edomites, Sidonians, and Hittites. They were from nations about which the Lord had told the Israelites, "You must not intermarry with them, because they will surely turn your hearts after their gods." Nevertheless, Solomon held fast to them in love. He had 700 wives of royal birth and 300 concubines, and his wives led him astray. As Solomon grew old, his wives turned his heart after other gods, and his heart was not fully devoted to the Lord his God, as the heart of David his father had been. He followed Ashtoreth, the goddess of the Sidonians, and Molech, the detestable god of the Ammonites. So Solomon did evil in the eyes of the Lord. He did not follow the Lord completely, as David his father had done. On a hill east of Jerusalem, Solomon built a high place for Chemosh, the detestable god of Moab, and for Molech, the detestable god of the Ammonites. He did the same for all his foreign wives, who burned incense and offered sacrifices to their gods. So we see, because of Solomon's disobedience to the Lord, that there is a prophecy that is spoken that says that the kingdom will be taken from the hands of Solomon's descendants. And we see that happen in the life of his son when the kingdom is split into two between Israel and Judah. Here we are finally making it to just about the top. We've got the last couple signs that we're going to see. And once you get to this point, you know you're at the top of this mountain. We're about to see, once we get over here to the left, there are going to be two obelisks. And these two obelisks were dedicated to the Nabatean gods, who were the main deities worshipped in this area. And those two gods were Dushara and Al-Uzza. And right when we get up here to this platform, you'll start to see them right here on the left. You'll see the second one just for a split second. So there's the first one, and here is the second one, the taller one. Here we are with our last leg of stairs that we've got until we get to the top of the high place. You'll see as we get closer that the stairs disappear, and we're just going to be walking on rock, and our only guide will be arrows that are spray painted on the ground. One thing I noticed, and I don't know if it's intentional, and I learned this from being at the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, if you're ever at the southern steps, the steps are always different sizes. And in Jerusalem, that was the case because they never wanted anybody to run up the steps as they were going to the Holy Temple. They wanted people to contemplate and to think about why they were going to where they were heading. And so you could tell here that all the steps are different lengths. And here you can start seeing those arrows that are spray painted. You can't tell it from this video because I have the volume turned down so low, but it is incredibly windy on top of this mountain. And you'll see me slow down here for a second just to make sure I've got my footing on this mountain, just because, again, the wind is so strong that you don't want to lose your balance. And so even here, you can see me kind of get a little bit lower to the ground. And we are about here at the high place. So we're about to see here they had an area to catch rainwater they would use for purifying and cleansing. So that's what you see here. This would have held the water. I've read a number of different articles on this site. Some people would have said that this big cut in the ground right here was where they would have shared a meal, even though I know that few people ever came up here just because this was the Holy of Holies for the Nabateans. And we're about to get a look up here from the top of the altar around all of Petra, or from one of the highest points in Petra. Probably not the best place for me to be standing on the site where anything that stood here was sacrificed, but it does have incredible views. So to the left right here, we're going to see where it's believed that the slaughtering took place here at the altar site. You can see where the blood would have drained through right here on the side, and it would have gone straight down the side of the mountain. You can see the hole right here. So they would have burned it in the middle on the platform I was just standing on, and it would have been slaughtered right here. It is unknown if any children were sacrificed here at this site. There are other Nabatean sites where it's known that children were sacrificed, but at this site it is not known.
That was a long hike up here. Whew. And I am slightly out of breath from this adventure. But you can tell right here where this altar is that they would drain the blood out the side. So you can see it. You can see right here. They would sacrifice the animals here, and the blood from the animals would drain right through here. Look at this view. So this kind of gives us an idea of what a high place in Israel might have looked like during the time of King Solomon and the wicked kings that came after him, who worshiped the gods of their neighbors. And we see it all started with Solomon. He intermarried with the Phoenicians, with the Amorites, and with the Moabites. And he started worshiping their gods, whether it was Baal, whether it was Astarte, whether it was Molech, whether it was Chemosh. And this is what a high place would have looked like. And honestly, if the high places in Israel were cut out of stone, I can see why some of the leaders may not have completely destroyed the high places. Because if they're carved out of stone, they're going to be pretty hard to get rid of. So this hike is totally worth it. Just a little bit, involves a little bit of physical exercise. And I imagine the priest that would have come up this thing would have had massive calves. Because it is a workout to get to the top of this mountain. And this view from where I'm at, I'm not even halfway down, but this view is stunning. And I'm gonna have to find a nice cold bottle of water once I get back down the bottom. There's a ton of little shacks that sell drinks, and a nice cold water would just hit the spot right now and quench my thirst. So let's go. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the subscribe button below. It helps me continue making content just like this video.